Shout outs.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bitcoiner's Guide. This is the podcast, the show that we wish we would have had when we first started learning about Bitcoin. So we made it for you. We're your host, Big Sean Harris, playing Marcus in the building. We got a special guest today, Mr. Marty's Owl. Hoo-hoo. Woo-hoo. How's your trades going, Marcus? Marty's Owl. How are your trades going?
Oh, that's a
Down
pigeon.
overall, but not bad, huh?
Hey, down but not out is the number one thing. Down but not out.
Never out.
Marcus, how's your trade going?
Yeah, I'm here. Trade's going great. Just stacking some cheaper sets, even though they're not as cheap as they were like earlier this year. What are we up? Like 70%
Yeah, what's
since the
what's the
start of the
Bitcoin
year?
price at? I haven't looked at the price. I don't ever look at the price unless we're doing a Bitcoiner's guide or
Dude,
unless someone on Twitter says we're dumping or we're pumping.
what's the live math? We're down like
I,
60%.
I always look at the price. I'm not gonna lie. I check it every day at least.
Every
I think we're at
day.
like 20, we're at like 27 and change
Here we are.
US
Okay.
dollars.
Timestamp and price stamp. Bitcoin's price currently $27,000, 400 and some change. Up about 1.90% in the last 24 hours. And today is Monday, May 15th, 3:12 p.m. I'm on the West Coast, so wherever you are, suck it. I'm in California, back home, but I'm going to Miami tomorrow. And speaking of Miami, Marty's Owl. I have some good memories of hanging out with you in Miami last year. We hung out a couple nights together, and one of the most memorable nights was when we were hanging out with Greg Zadge and his wife. Do you remember this? We were eating what was that? Like by the Art Gecko, or was it Art Deco? Greco?
Which night? I thought we did like maybe a couple nights. Was like the first night, kind of?
It was when it was just us four sitting down, and I was talking to Greg's wife, and I was like, dude, Greg, he figured out how to do blah blah blah. I was like, he's a genius. And then she was like, he told you, or you told him, remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
And
He's an
that's
actual genius. We're like, what?
yes, and that's when we found out
Yeah.
that he was a genius. So Marty's Owl has my back when I tell people that Greg is a genius. Marty's Owl was there.
I'll vouch for that. Greg is an actual genius, which is surprising, but
Yeah.
it makes sense at the same time, though.
No, there's a thin line. There's a thin line between highly regarded and genius. And Greg figures out how to walk that line perfectly.
Oh, he can walk that perfectly.
Yes, yes, he can.
Yeah, whenever I hear these kind of stories from like conferences and people meeting up, I always get like a little bit of FOMO and a little bit of jealous, because I've never been to any Bitcoin conference yet. I've just been to some like Bitcoin meetups in Amsterdam and here in Medellin. And I have to say though, those are some of the coolest, have been like some of the coolest nights I've been to Bitcoin related, when you meet like a bunch of Bitcoiners, you don't really have to like share too much information about like, oh, what are you into and stuff, because obviously everybody's into Bitcoin. It's just like time flies by and before you know it, the night is over and you're like, shit, I could talk for hours longer with these guys. Have you been to a lot of conferences, Marty, or was that like your only conference, or what's your experience been?
Yeah, so this is my second Miami. So I went to that first one, 21. Last year was 22. And I think, Sean, I think I met you for the first time last year, I think. I don't
Yeah.
think before that.
Yeah, I don't think we met in 21 for I don't know why, but we just didn't end up meeting in 21.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you guys knew each other in 21. I mean, like,
Yeah.
where did you guys meet on Twitter first? That was like, wasn't that like true, like Toxic Happy Hour?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was through the Toxic Happy Hour chat and the
That's
Toxic,
chat.
yeah, and then the YouTube looking at Pubby's broken door, his broken closet, waiting for the strippers to show up to Anders' house.
Get the doorbell ringing.
The
Yeah.
doorbell, the red balloon.
What? No one even knows what the red balloon. No one even knows what the
Yeah,
red balloon was.
Marcus, you're the red balloon, right?
Yeah, that was me.
What
I
is
don't
that?
even know what it was. I don't even know what it was. I was just like, once I did a red balloon and Anders immediately on stream was like, oh, it looks like Plan Marcus found the red balloon. So I was like, oh, I got a reaction, this is kind of fun. So next time I did it again, and it became this thing where he said it, oh, I have to interrupt the show because Marcus found the red balloon again. And nobody else was allowed to do it but me. So it was kind of fun.
I was
That was
always
it.
I
I
was
thought
always
there
thinking
were to it.
I was always thinking it was like
No,
it, the clown it, where like he holds the red balloon. That's what I was
yeah,
like, oh, I wonder if it has to do with it or something like that. He's coming
yeah.
to
See, it's kind of like a magic trick, right? Once you spill the beans, it's not fun anymore. So maybe I should have like not said anything.
oh yeah. The 15 viewers of Toxic Happy Hour in 2020 are wrecked right now.
Yeah. I'm sure Moon Guy is watching this. So Moon Guy, now
Yes.
you know. Don't tell anybody.
Hey, speaking of Moon Guy, we appreciate everyone who comes in and watches. Clover gave us a nice little shout out and some sats on Fountain last week. Appreciate it. And if you like the show, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and back in the podcast. So, Marty, what have you been paying attention to lately? We got a lot of stuff going on in the Bitcoin world. Bitcoin conference is coming up. Some call it the shitcoin conference. Ordinals are going everywhere. Are you paying attention to that? Or are you more sticking on, what Bitcoin really is?
Yeah, I mean, so like recently, I just like, dude, I didn't know what the ordinal thing at all was until like a couple months ago. Just like
Oh,
trying to figure that out, like BRC20, what's going on and all that. Like, I've never and so like I guess all these, I guess it's driving all the high fees that we've been seeing recently and stuff.
yeah.
So I guess that's like been the most exciting thing, but I don't know, man. I just like I guess recently I haven't been like into Bitcoin. Like I know it's like for me it's the only thing that matters really in life, right? But like I don't know. I feel like I've listened to all the podcasts. I've done everything
Yeah.
that you kind of need to do, and I've been in here for I guess a long time too. I guess like close to 9 years for me. So it's kind of like
Ooh. Oh, well confirmed, Marcus.
Oh,
yeah,
Well
Ballena. Yeah.
confirmed. 9 years.
I thought you were a class of like 2017,
Me
18,
too.
19, like us, but wow.
yeah. I was 14. So I was coming down like in the bear market of like Mount Gox and stuff.
Like class of 14 or just were you 14 years old?
Oh,
Both. It was both. He was born in 2000 as an owl. He was nested for the first year of his life, and then he took flight year one, 2001.
14. Dude, that's awesome, man. I always get like anyway, let me not interrupt. You go ahead. Yeah, you were 14. It was 2014.
yeah, just 14. So like I don't know. I've kind of been in this space for a while, and like there was like a few years where everything I did was like around Bitcoin. Like I just consumed Bitcoin stuff. So
Yeah.
like now it's like, yeah, I'm taking a little bit of break, just doing other things, maybe watching a little bit more sport ball here and there and stuff like that, and just focus on different things. But like, dude, I'm like for Bitcoin for me is like the only answer, right? I guess the only thing that really matters in the whole scheme of things with everything else. You have to fix the money before anything else gets really fixed. So I mean, that's for me number one still. So yeah, I mean, like I know the ordinal stuff is kind of interesting and just kind of new coming out of left field for this year, but
Were,
I don't know, man.
were you around? Were you around for colored coins when that was going on?
Colored coins? I don't
Yeah.
think so. Was
Yeah.
that thing?
It was kind of something
What is
like
that?
it was something similar to the ordinal business right now that's going on.
Yeah, I remember 14, like I got like really into it like right off the bat, but like I wasn't like down the rabbit hole too much. So it kept going down from like 500 to like $200. I'm like, oh my God, I can't stomach this anymore. $200. Then you like
Fucking
stop
hell.
paying attention, and then and but yeah, I'm like, this is kind of cool. I'll keep buying more to see what's going on because like I kind of like just like the whole Bitcoin project because like I just want to contribute, just like help the cause. I never like really went down the rabbit hole that much and like felt like it's gonna be the be and end all where it's just gonna consume everything like 21 million over everything else. Um, So I mean, I bought some. I just want to contribute to the project. This is cool. It's like right up my alley and stuff. But um, and then
So how do you do that though? Like because you just mentioned just before we started that you're like not really a technical guy, so I'm assuming you're not like a developer, or maybe you are, but I don't know.
oh no,
So
absolutely
when
not.
so when you're thinking about like
Ooh,
I'm contributing to Bitcoin, is it like by buying Bitcoin or like how does that like work in your head, or how do you
donations.
Yeah, well, like, um, so like
memes,
I'm a
shit
finance
poster?
guy. I went to school for
Okay.
finance, and like I saw like the whole 2008 like great financial crisis stuff, and I was like, what the hell is this shit? Like the whole, like I was a complete idiot of a kid back then. I think I was like in college, just like 18 years old, whatever. It kind of guided me towards being a finance major because I just wanted to like research and stuff into it. But like even being an idiot kid back then, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. You're just rewarding bad behavior and all that kind of stuff. So it
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
from that point on, I just, had a huge hate for the Fed and just like the whole monetary system that's, surrounds us all. And so like when I saw Bitcoin for the first time, I basically latched onto it right away. Um, and back then, 2014, it's like still super small, right? Like just whatever, at the time it was like $500. So whatever market cap that is, I mean, that's, nothing still in the whole grand scheme. I mean, today it's still
Right.
nothing in the grand scheme
It's
of things,
still
but
nothing. Yeah, yeah.
back then it was like super small. But I was like,
Yeah.
I like this. This is right up my alley. It makes sense to me. It's away from the government, censorship resistant, all that kind of stuff. I had a couple hangups on different things where I'm like, it's cool, but it's not going to be the thing that saves us all, whatever. But I'll contribute. I'll buy some, whatever. Just like do some things with it. I played around with it, like with some like loan, like if people were back then, they know about BTC Jam. It's like a peer-to-peer Bitcoin loan lending thing, which was pretty cool. Get some extra sats that way and just played around with it. But um yeah, but then I kind of like, didn't pay too much attention to it. I was aware of the halving and stuff like in 16. And then like it just kept pumping and stuff like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then, 17 is that whole mania phase. And that's when I really got interested. And then I guess 18, 19 is the bear market where you just get hardened, right? And you're like, just that's when I just consume podcasts and books and the Bitcoin standard and the price of tomorrow and that kind of stuff. So that's when I'm just like, all right, I'm all in at that point. In
Hmm.
18, just dump everything else I have and just, keep going.
Dude, that's
And what
pretty insane to think. Oh, go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, no, I was a little bit curious because obviously I missed like the whole 214, 15 era and stuff. And I was just curious because I'm hearing from everybody like when I came in like end of 2017, there was already like a bunch of YouTube and podcast and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like, how do you find it like back in 14? And what was like I mean, was Preston Fish already talking? I don't think so, right? I think he started in 2017 with his
Yeah,
Bitcoin episode.
Pitch wasn't there yet. Like I remember a coworker just mentioned it to me and like just like I'm into finance, so I'm like, all right, I'll just take a look at it after work. And then like
And was that like Reddit or what was it?
it was just a coworker at work. I don't know where she got it, but she just mentioned it to me, and then I like looked into things, and then I think it's like Trace Mayer stuff. I remember Trace Mayer was back then
Right.
when he was still prevalent,
Before Mimblewimble.
before the Mimblewimble stuff. Um, oh, dude, who's the guy? Who's the main guy?
Andreas.
Antonopoulos, of course. Yeah.
Andreas. Yeah, Andreas. Yeah, before he shitcoined as well. But yeah, Andreas was probably my biggest one back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean that was really the big one. I remember Roger Ver was still in Bitcoin back then, so I remember watching some
Jeez.
Roger Ver stuff.
That's crazy to think about.
What do you mean? Roger Ver is still in Bitcoin. That is real Bitcoin.
That's what he tells everyone. Bitcoin's BCH.
Bcash.
Be trash. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was like mainly those three, and just like I think a little bit of Max too. I think.
Max
But
Kaiser.
A little bit RT, the Kaiser report.
yeah, a little RT, a little Max Kaiser. But dude, that literally seems like decades ago. Like 2014 seems like so long ago.
I mean, it
That's like,
is it'll be a
Almost,
decade
it
ago
is a
next
decade.
year.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess in Bitcoin too, it's just like you have all these like bulls and bears. It's just it feels like, 5 different lifetimes.
So
All right,
you
who was your first and favorite meme account? And then I'll shut up, Sean.
no, go ahead. Yeah, that's true.
First favorite meme account.
Labrador.
I love Labra, but I've been lurking on Twitter forever.
Yeah.
Shoot, I forget. I mean, probably American Huddle, like OG, just memeing stuff.
Yeah.
6.15, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, like, but like now I
Taco
feel
Pledge.
the meme era is like got good, like in the 1819s with you guys, like Meme Factory and everybody. That's when like all the memers like really started to like spread and like everybody's a memer.
It's crazy, dude. It's crazy how good the memes have gotten. Since
Yeah.
I would say through COVID, the memes have just exploded in Bitcoin. It's insane.
Yeah, I got on during like the COVID time because like I was bored. I'm like, I'll just create a Twitter account, just like start memes and stuff. And that's how I got into it and just started making memes. Like I need to get back in the meme game, man. I've been off for a while.
Yeah, you made that your
Yeah.
pin tweet is that El Salvador, all those Ferraris, and you're like, this is what El Salvador is gonna look like in 2030. That was a
Yeah.
dope meme.
Classic one. But yeah, I haven't done much memes, which is pretty sad. I need to get back on the meme train, dude.
Dude, why did you pick the name Marty's Owl? Is that from Marty Bent or what?
Yeah. Do you listen to his podcast at all? Or used to?
Yeah, from time to time I do. Not all the time, but I definitely do tune in.
Yeah, they had like Marty would do like a Cash App sponsor, and then his like I forget what it was. I think it was like something called Alice Lacrosse,
Yeah.
uh, which was like if you if you do the link that Marty shares with Cash App, like $10 will go to like Alice Lacrosse. He always do like an owl sound, like a hoot, whatever.
Uh-huh.
I just made the count just like make fun of him a lot, just like, whoa, that was the shittiest like owl sound I've ever heard, and just like just make fun of him all the time. Um, and so that's how it got created. And everybody's like, oh my God, this is great. And then just kind of exploded from there. And then it just started making memes and whatever. Um, and then I don't even make fun, I don't even see Marty in my timeline anymore and stuff, which is like weird. Um, so it's just like I can't even make fun of him because I always forget about him now.
Yeah, you got to put on like tweet notifications for him. So he's
Yeah.
like your name giver, yeah.
For real.
Oh, but that's funny though. So yeah, so just by making fun of the guy through the memes, it kind of started leading your own life with it.
It's like a little meta life. Like there was like part of that joke was like Alice Lacrosse too, like, another guy on Twitter.
Yeah.
That came from that as well. And then I think I was going to make an Alice Lacrosse Twitter initially. Then he took it. The guy that has it now took it. And then I'm like, all right, I'll just do the owl thing. That'll be funny and just like, warp like I'm an owl and stuff. And just like make fun of Marty and Man and everybody. But yeah, that's how it came to be. And then I started just like, rating his hoots every like podcast and just give like a hoot score, get like 6.7 hoots if it was, if it was good or not. So yeah, it was cool.
That is cool. So I was thinking, going back to earlier what you're talking about, right? Like so much time in Bitcoin. Some of that I always think about is Yellow. First of all, Yellow. I mean, he's been in Bitcoin since 2013. I mean, had some on Gox, and then now he's doing the Don't Stop Believing spaces. He's done that for like almost like what is it, a year and a half straight now. He'll be going 2 years this November. So he always talks about like your inner cipher from the Matrix and like all this stuff. And you were saying how like, okay, I've listened to all the podcasts, I've read a lot of books, now I can kind of chill and relax. What does that look like for you? Where you go through that phase which for a lot of us is like a couple of years, 2 or 3 or 4 year long phase where it's just like Bitcoin obsession nonstop. What does it look like when you kind of leave that rabbit hole? You don't leave it, but I don't know how to explain it exactly. Like you still realize that you're in the matrix, but you're okay with it now. There's not as much mind-blowing stuff. I don't know what does it feel like now?
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I feel like I'm the quintessential person to like understanding Bitcoin. Just, my beliefs were I just hate the government and just get the money out of the way and just don't like the Fed. And I have a good understanding of finance and all that kind of stuff and decent understanding of tech. But even for me, it really took me a long time to, so like I came in 14, then probably 19, 20 is 18, 19, 20 is where I put in a ton of work. And then, I'm like, all right, this is it. It's the only thing that matters. So, I mean, it took me a few years to, finally kind of come to that conclusion. But
Yeah.
going to that point, I mean, I put in a lot of work. Just, it's kind of ridiculous the amount of, studying hours you do is really just kind of consuming podcasts, books, YouTube shows, Toxic Happy Hour, and dumb things like that, right? And then you're just like, wow, this is it. And you put your money where your mouth is. You just kind of ape in, go all in, and like I'm kind of at peace now. I don't worry at all. I just go to sleep and not think about things, and I have a good understanding with it, and just I don't have to really kind of worry about too much with finances because I know I'm with Bitcoin. It's just I'll be good in the end, and I just feel really comfortable and ease with everything. But I mean, right now I'm still consuming podcasts, not at like a crazy rate I was doing because I was probably doing 8 to 10 hours a day for a couple of years.
Yeah,
But
me too.
That's a
I
that's a
still
that's
do. I
that's a
still
light
do.
day.
Yeah.
That's a light day for Marcus.
dude,
Oh,
I mean,
no.
it's like you like I work from home, so it's just I have something on in the background all the time, whether it be like now it's kind of like mostly music, but I mean back in for several years it was just all it was podcasts.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
consume, go through like Stefan Livera, what Bitcoin did, go through anything, Toxic Happy Hour, just
Do you
waste my workday during there.
do you think we're entering like a new age too in like the Bitcoin world where I feel like there's a lot of us that we listen to all those podcasts and we get to the point where we're just like, wow, okay, we get it. Like it's Bitcoin and it's Bitcoin only. It's not any of the shit coins. It's not the Fed. It's not gold. It's not any of this other stuff. Bitcoin is actually the real solution. And then it's just like, I don't know, like what you said, you have all this peace. And so then you just start thinking, okay, well, okay, I need to add more humor to my life. I need to add more fun things into my life. I went down so deep and now I come out on the other side of it. Like what, and I don't think anyone ever comes out completely on the other side of it. There's always a ton more to learn. But do you think we're kind of entering this new age where even some of the newcomers can just ingest a ton of information and then it's like, okay, well, now that we know this, like what next? I don't know if that's something that you think about.
Yeah, I think we're like at a time where it's like it's really easy to access all the information. Like back when I came in, it was pretty hard because there weren't, there's only a handful of people like what we mentioned, right? There wasn't a ton of people kind of vouching for this, and there weren't very many respectable, finance names kind of back in it. Like right now, you have like Paul Tudor Jones, you have people
Yeah.
like Press Pitch talking about it and
Bill
stuff. So
Miller, yeah.
it just gives a little bit more credibility and credence to it. So like it's not a bunch of weird dork nerds in their basement saying it's like $1 million.
Yeah.
They're still there. They're still there, but yeah, not only.
Yeah, I mean they're still doing it, but at least you have at least some people in finance world that can back it up a little bit. They actually can see it. So I think that gives it some credibility, and there's just more information. I think just the books that have been written, and it's more easier now to get it than ever before. So I think it's still hard for people to get it, but the learning curve should be shorter moving forward. And then I think Bitcoin should make it easier for investments, right? You shouldn't have to be thinking about like, what
Yeah.
else should I invest my money in stuff. So like it should keep you at ease. And then once you basically figured out Bitcoin's it, then you can focus on other things, enjoy life, you know, but
That's kind of what I was leading towards was, okay, once you fixed your own money personally, it's almost like, okay, well, what's next? Like, is it health? Is it relationships? Is it, trying to build my own
Like,
business?
did Bitcoin change you, right? That's what you're asking, more or
Yeah,
less.
like what do you, because fixing your own money personally is a tall order, and it's not easy when you're born in a fiat world to do that. And so once you do that and you make that decision, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna let, I'm gonna live this Bitcoin standard. Like, what follows that, right? It's okay, fix the money, fix the world. Well, what happens when you fix the money? Is your world like, how do you fix your world after that? Does it just get naturally smoothed over, or are there things that you have to attack too?
yeah, I mean, like I remember like I used to like come home from work and like I would just like because I would understand balance sheets, income statements of companies. And so I would just like research like all these companies, what's the like a good stock to buy, kind of look at the charts, do some TA, and then that's how I would spend like a lot of my free time and
Oh,
stuff.
that sounds terrible.
Yeah. But it's like, very
And you
act
had to. That's what you had to do, right?
yeah, it's what everybody does now, right? You have to pay attention to a lot of different things if you want to have your money work for you in
Yeah.
a way.
I just want to say it's not what everybody does nowadays. Just to clarify.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
well, is what you're for. If you want to not be a victim of inflation and debasement of your money, you have to do that.
it's either you do it by yourself or you give it to like a financial advisor, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand finance, so I, would not be hire a financial advisor. So I just did it myself. So, but now that I'm in Bitcoin, I don't do that at all. I don't even pay attention to markets at all, which is crazy because I would, probably quote the Dow Jones or the S&P like, any day of the week, what it was at and just, but like now I don't have to do that. I don't need to spend all that time researching dumb companies that mean nothing to you. And,
Well, why is it, just to clarify for the listener, why is that? Because it's just not going anywhere compared to Bitcoin?
yeah, it's not going anywhere. And then you can just, I mean, I'm all in Bitcoin, so you can just stack up on the Bitcoin and just write it out and just not diversify. Cause like I was always from the mold that you have to diversify by, a
Yeah.
million stocks. And then when you have a million different stocks, you have to pay attention to a million different stocks.
Yeah.
So it's just like you want to pull your hair out, dude. It's like the worst thing. But like if you are in one thing like Bitcoin, just pay attention to Bitcoin. And you kind of have to do a lot of research just to get to that point where you're like, all right, they're just gonna ape everything into Bitcoin. Just go from there. But I'm at that point. It feels good. Don't have to worry about anything. Don't save a lot of free time. Able to do a lot more things. Prioritize health and fitness a lot more recently in the last few years, and
So
um, just other things. I mean, I think once you kind of come to that realization, it just raises your level everywhere else.
Have you changed your plans for the future at all? Because I remember for me, I literally
yeah.
went from like, like I always like to joke that, like the 9 to 5 fiat cubicle job to like, you know what? I'm just gonna change my life altogether and just, I don't know. It really did change like that for me. And like you said as well, like the health, like the food. It feels like you get like, at least for me, it felt like, hey, wait a minute, like you're not racing anymore to get ahead, like all those co-workers, you're kind of like in a race with them to try to get a better job and hopefully pay off your house someday and stuff. And then with Bitcoin, like it took, just like you, it really took like hours and hours, like probably, I dare to say thousands of hours of like podcasts and stuff,
Yeah.
where you get to that point where you're like, you know what, it's not scary to put your money in Bitcoin. It's scary to not have your money in Bitcoin, right? And once you realize that and you just like really flip to the other side, it just put me at peace. And I felt like I had like a lot of time and rest towards the future. And once you find that rest and yeah, I don't know if I want to say hope because it feels like I'm beyond like hope. Yeah, like it feels. But anyway, that's just me personal. But then once you get that feeling, it's like, okay, like now I have time and I actually have to think about, like what am I going to do in the future if this is going to be my future? You start looking at life completely different. So it's like this different mindset where you really start thinking about what it is that you really want instead of just like chasing what the man wants you to chase after, which is like work harder, work longer days, compete more, and go after that career. It's more focused on around like what I really want. So yeah, I don't know. Does that resonate at all? Like,
Yeah.
did it?
No, that makes total sense because I live in the corporate world right now. I actually work for like one of the big banks in the US, like part of the enemy, right? But
Yeah, we got some
Oh,
eyes on the enemy from the inside.
but no, but
I'm
that's so cool because it must be so fun, like literally living in the Matrix, right? Because yeah, so I'm curious to see what you've seen change inside that, but that's a different story. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, like, I was that perfect corporate dude where I'm like, oh yes, I'll do this and I'll do it. I'll work overnight and I'll work the weekends just to get things done. But like, and then try to work as hard just to move up to that next level and do this and that and
Exactly.
be the best corporate bro you can be to just make the your company a little bit more money. But like now I just like don't care really. I'll do my job, but like I'm not gonna work weekends. I'm not gonna work, till midnight on certain things. It's a job. You just do what you gotta do. And you know, right now I'm in that corporate world and hopefully, I just want to grind for maybe another couple more years, 3 more years, 4 more years, whatever that is. And then I don't know, man. I feel like at that point, Bitcoin will be a different place. Maybe it's like an El Salvador thing. Maybe it's having a little farm close to where I'm at in the middle of the country and just kind of chilling, doing some different things. But you do have a different perspective on life. It's just I become much more outdoorsy too with Bitcoin.
Right.
Just kind of enjoying nature more, getting out of the cubicle, out of the LED lights, all that kind of stuff, and just enjoying sunlight, just getting outside and doing things. So I mean, that's another portion of Bitcoin where it's just changed me and just have a different perspective on life, right? Just enjoy it more and don't waste a day just typing emails all day and different things, right? So it's hopefully, in a few years it's a little different, but right now I'll be grinding, but in a few years in a completely different place.
Yeah,
Yeah. Have you already thought about like I mean you mentioned a farm and stuff, so it doesn't sound like you've made it very concrete yet. You're kind of like still like okay.
No,
Obviously, you don't feel like you have to like suck up to the man as much anymore, right? Because you're like, I've got a little backup exit plan here. But at the same time, you're still doing your thing, and but you haven't really made any concrete plans either about like this is what I want, or I'm gonna do this or that, or
yeah, it's no concrete plans, man. It's just really seeing what happens, how the chips fall, and kind of doing my thing for a little bit, just really grinding for a while, and then yeah, I think something big will probably happen in the next few years. That El Salvador thing, I think we mentioned before this, but I'm excited for the happening party next year because I
let's
do want
go. Let's
uh,
go.
I do want to scope out
Woo-hoo!
maybe some real estate down there. Hoo-hoo! So that that
have you been
keep
down
on
there
popping.
already, or
No, I haven't been there. So this would be my first time. So
Let's
it'd be
go.
cool.
Dude,
cool.
that's the cool thing about the having party is that was one of my ideas too, is right. It's like it's gonna give everyone a chance who wants to go down there a reason to go down because we're all gonna go down at the same time. And I think it's like, okay, well, if everyone else is going down to El Salvador, for the having, well, I'll go down too. So I think that's what's really cool about it.
But it's pretty exciting though, because you're actually, if I hear you correctly, you're actually hinting at like maybe doing the El Salvador thing. What does that mean? Like you're actually thinking about like leaving the United States and like relocating or like permanently?
It's a
Because that's a
possibility. It's on the table.
interesting.
You got to keep a lot
That's
of options
interesting.
open.
I
Yeah.
like
Yeah, so it'd be I just want to see what it's like. I know that Bitcoin City is kind of interesting to me. I mean, we'll see. That's probably like 10 years out, but I don't know if it stays how it is in El Salvador, and Bitcoin continues doing what it's doing. It could be, like the next Abu Dhabi type thing, right?
it.
So
There's a big question, right? Because for people who have been in Bitcoin for a while and they've seen a lot of gains in Bitcoin, well, when you go to El Salvador, it's the currency of the country. So then there's these like issues that come into play where does the United States recognize Bitcoin as currency in El Salvador when you spend it, or is it capital gains taxes? There's all these questions that arise. So it's really cool that El Salvador has done that because I think it's gonna help push away these capital gains taxes that we're subject to here in the United States on our Bitcoin.
yeah, and that's like part of it because like in like the current tax laws, it kind of forces you to move to certain areas, right? If you
Yeah.
ever really want to use it to any extent, you kind of have to go. So, I mean, that's kind of why I'm thinking maybe El Salvador. So, really, unless the US changes their tax laws regarding it, that's, probably one of the big advantages of going to El Salvador and not have that tax. I don't know how that works with if you're still a US citizen, you go down there and use it,
Yeah.
but um,
You're still taxed. I think the US government follows you all over the world as long as you're a
yeah.
citizen.
Yeah, the only issue is normal like that's normally if you're selling a security, right? Or you're selling your home. Uh, but if you're transacting in another nation's currency, that's where it becomes really interesting to see what would happen. Right.
Yeah,
Right, right.
I see that
Specific to El
argument.
Salvador.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that argument where like ever since El Salvador made that, the US basically has to change their laws to like since accepted currency, you can't have like capital gains on it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually quite interesting, but I don't think anybody's like challenged that in court yet, right?
It's not worth it. It's not worth it yet, I don't think. Right? Like I think one day it will get there. There are a lot of people like if you look at Max and Stacy, like I swear that every day they're retweeting someone who's moving down to El Salvador or who at least is, they may take a 3-month trip down there and try to feel things out if they're gonna make the move. So, I would also just caution people too, like, hey, just because times are bad in whatever country you're in, you never know how things could flip in any other country or in your own country. And sometimes you get this honeymoon, like I've moved from country to country a lot myself. And sometimes you get this honeymoon phase in a country. And so, you know, I would say just don't make any rash decisions if you don't have to. I like what you're doing, Marty's out. Like, yeah, just kind of go down there, check how things are. If you like it, make another trip back. And if that's what you really want to do, then slowly make that move. I don't think there's any reason to make it very fast, but sometimes there are reasons to have, passports, like, like the girls from Plan B, Katie and Jessica, like there are reasons to have passports, the multi-flag theory, and to be able to get up and leave if you have to in a moment's notice.
Dude, I'm just really curious about like how you've seen because in 2014, like it was literally like first they ignore you, right? And then like I think 2017, 2018, like they started laughing and now they're really like fighting us. But you're working in a bank, and I think you said you worked at that bank the whole time. Like, how has that been? And like, are you the Bitcoin guy within the bank, or are you just like not telling anybody about it? Like, how is that to work in a bank being like this full retarded, regarded Bitcoin maximalist?
Yeah, I worked at like two big US banks. And I just moved to one recently, like within the past year, but like the one before that, yeah, I was the Bitcoin guy. Everybody knew I was a Bitcoin guy. Everybody was like coming up to me. And really both bull markets because I was there for both, just like, oh my God. And then, you know, when it was going down, they'd be like laughing at me and just give me shit. I'm like, all right, whatever. Yeah, and you know, I was like part of the I had a job where I was like working on the website, like on more like the product business side, and I would like, you know, go to my boss like, hey, can we should probably get into Bitcoin, probably should offer it, you know, have people be able to buy in and stuff like that.
There's no
And
way they went for it.
You're fired. No, I'm just kidding. It's like
they're
that
like,
meme when they throw you out the window.
well, that's interesting, but we're gonna have like this chat help bot, which helps users have find information what they need to do on the site.
They added
Like,
candy.
like
They added candy aisles to the Blockbuster is what they did.
yeah. So I'm like, all right, cool. So they just completely dismissed me. So I'm like, all right, whatever. And then I guess I almost brought it up in town halls, like with like the whole company just like there to talk to the CEO, and I should have brought it up there, but I never did. But yeah, everybody knew I was a Bitcoin guy, and you know, some people bought some because of me. So I guess helped kind of orange pill some people, but yeah, it's
Okay,
weird
but
because you're essentially taking out the banks from within. So it
has the attitude and the reaction from people and like the knowledge around Bitcoin, has that changed throughout the years though? Or is it still like, oh, you're just that Bitcoin guy? Is it still like this thing they dismiss and laugh at, or are they taking it a little bit more serious now?
like at work.
Yeah.
Um,
Or work and in your regular life.
yeah, at work, dude, like all at the banks, man, everybody's like they just have such an old thinking, like they don't change at all. So it just takes forever. So they'll be like the last ones to get that.
Are they still trying to buy bonds?
Oh, sure. They're trying to buy bonds and they're just doing dumb stuff all the time, man. Like the banks are just so slow to react. You know, it Bitcoin will probably be 100% and then adopted by everybody. Then like 10 years later, like, hey, we should probably invest in Bitcoin. I mean, that's
Yeah, to
that's
be
how
honest,
slow
it can
they
be a
are.
little bit frustrating to me sometimes, you know. And I remember like 2017 thinking like I'm late to this, you know,
Yes.
everybody's here already
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Twitter and like Jesus, listening to Antonopoulos, you know, like you're watching back videos that were already recorded in like 2011 and 2013. It's like, oh my God, how did I miss all this? And there's so much people in this space and it's huge. And then when you're in this Bitcoin bubble, it seems like, you know, like everybody knows it, but then, you know, you walk outside, you know, you turn off your phone or your laptop or whatever, you walk outside and like just now in Medellin too, it's like I'm still somebody who will go up to random people and just, yeah, as a taxi driver, what do you think about Bitcoin, right? And they're just like, like crypto moneda, yeah. What do you know about it?
Pepe?
It's digital, and that's about it. You know, it's like okay, so there's some like
We're light
they
years ahead.
know it exists, but that's about it, you know. And then it's like, come on, like we're literally like 5 or 6 years on from when I found it in 2017, but it feels like in the outside world nothing's changed. But then when I look on like social media and like all the developments from Michael Saylor, El
Yeah.
Salvador, you
Yeah.
do realize, and the amount of plebs on Twitter as well, like it's growing, but
It's
it's just
slow.
not mass, you know. It's not we haven't crossed that Rubicon or whatever that English term is yet, you know, where we go from like early adopters to like the early majority, because there is no, for to me it doesn't seem like the early majority still hasn't arrived yet.
No.
There's no majority.
Yeah, it just seems slow, man. And like I keep thinking there's only 21 million of these things. Like
Right?
Yeah,
how can
right,
it not
it's
be
like
bought up
nothing.
by a bunch of people already and just like pump this to, you know, millions? Like I don't get how, you know, I'm able to still get a decent amount in 2023. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It's crazy. Well, it just people, I mean, if you think about it, right? People think about what we just said. Like Marty Zhao, you're like from 2014 to 2020, you're basically getting orange pilled. Like and like Marcus, it took you like a while too. And that's when we were trying to focus on it. Most people they're not looking for a solution. They're not looking for this thing. They're just trying to work and make money. And they don't even realize that they need a solution. They don't even realize that there's a problem there. And I think it just takes a little bit more pain. And I mean, look at Argentina, right? I think they just announced a 97% interest rate. Like, imagine getting a 97% interest rate in whatever currency you're in. Like, that's what we're headed for. If
Is that
inflation,
real? Are you talking about inflation or interest rate?
interest rate,
That's just
because their
ridiculous.
inflation's so high, right? Like, their inflation is that high, so the interest rate has to be that high. And
Yeah.
and so that's like what I see is, when it gets to that point, the issue is with a country like Argentina, because of the monetary debasement, everyone's so poor, and so then they can only focus on just working because they've been stolen from so much through inflation. And so it's just this problem that I don't know what makes any of us see it, because it's hidden so well, and Bitcoin is hidden so well, that you really have to look at it from new eyes and a new mindset to see the solution, that it's actually a solution for a problem that you have.
But I still don't get, like, I feel like Argentina, like, yeah, I know they're not, like a first world country. They're not like the US. We have a great privilege here where we're able to save, don't have to worry about meals for the next day and stuff like that all the time. But like, I feel like some of these places in like Lebanon, Turkey too, where
Mm-hmm.
maybe just start a little bit with Bitcoin and see how that goes, and transform from there. And I mean, there's millions of people in all those countries. So I mean, if you got some just base level adoption, not even a big percent, but
Yeah.
then that just kind of rolls over and just keeps going into this big snowball, right? And just now everybody's doing it. So I feel like it's still crazy to me how it's not, not a big percentage yet still over there.
But think about it. So with fiat, especially, the more inflation that you have, the more that you're incentivized to steal from your future,
Yeah.
because it's just simple. If we're talking about corporate finance, right? Money now, the time value of money now is worth more than money later. And so you want to keep stealing from the future because your money is getting weaker and weaker. And Bitcoin is the opposite, where money later is worth more than money now. And so it incentivizes you to save for the future. And the issue with people who are in these fiat currencies is that because they're forced to steal from their future, essentially they're living paycheck to paycheck, or even less than paycheck to paycheck with credit. And to have Bitcoin, you have to have savings. And so many people are forced out of savings just because of the nature of their currency, because of the debasement of their currency. And I think that's the issue with a lot of these countries, like in Argentina or Turkey or wherever, is that they're just forced out of savings due to the time value of money that they're in. And I think that's what makes it this issue is, how can you save in Bitcoin if you have no savings? That's like the first issue to handle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always tough. Um, I'm just wondering if, just a few, but like I just feel like a few people, just a few percent just kind
Yeah.
of, just get paid directly in Bitcoin, then,
Mm-hmm.
then that now you have some savings, and other people are like, oh wow, you have savings now. Well, yeah, because I have some Bitcoin, and I don't have Argentine pesos and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I feel like I get that, but I just feel like there's not. I don't get how there's not a small percentage still trying to
I know.
eat a little bit too at the same time.
It's true, because even payments, like, even if it's not saving in Bitcoin, well, if you start doing payments in Bitcoin, like, this is, Marcus and I were talking about this before, you know, if you have an online business and you want to sell something, well, when you use Stripe, not Strike, but Stripe or something like that, well, they're taking a 2 to 3% haircut on every sale that you have. And that's to use the legacy financial system. But if you're to use something like BTC Pay Server or Lightning or whatever you wanted to use, then there's no intermediary, and you don't have that percentage that's taken off the top. And so then you can save more, you can make more, and then eventually you'll probably start saving in Bitcoin because you'll start to realize what it is. But it just that stuff takes time. Like, it does take time. But you would think that people have the problem, like enough of a problem, where they would sit down and take the time to do this.
Yeah. To
Is there any?
me, I always bring it down. Like obviously, Marty, like I was smirking a little bit when you said like, okay, I'm working in finance, and like you got this, and Sean knows why because we always say like, okay, a lot of people in the Bitcoin Maxis we get on, they're either like engineer, they're into physics, they're into finance, or they're like developers, right? So it's like, what was it, Sean? Anyway, it's always like smart people, seriously.
Yeah.
So I always
Yeah.
sometimes feel like you know and even you mentioned it took you like almost 5 years and thousands of hours of podcasts for it to really click. So maybe and so much people, they come into the space and then they get hijacked by people like Raul Paul selling them the next NFT or the
Yeah.
next shiny shitcoin,
Yeah.
and they never really they just listen to people and they're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, it's blockchain and yeah, it's fast and it has utility and they never really figured out why it's like actual sound money and figuring out like how the fiat system really works is complex, and then you got all this macro talk and stuff. So I think people don't really make it, that deep into the rabbit hole, either through lack of time or maybe through lack of understanding, and Bitcoin is still also a little bit clunky and technical. So yeah, I feel people just like never really make it down. But ultimately though, when people do make it to like that maximalism state, then you swallowed the orange pill and you've seen something that you cannot unsee, so and to me, that's the bullish part because everybody that is like laser eyed or orange pilled or whatever it is, they don't they don't lose that glow in their eye, and they'll always be able to explain it to other people, and it's just a superior idea. And to me, like a good idea, it's like cliche whose time it's come. It will spread, but it just seems to like I can tell people that I encounter, whether it's friends or family, and I could tell them with like really passionate, like this is why and this is the idea, but it just doesn't click right away. People really have to put in the work themselves, and I feel like a lot of people just don't make it down that proof of work, which you need to do to get there.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm in the US, Sean, you're in the US. Like, just here, the currency is like kind of stable, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
like,
stable enough. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you noticed like the price hikes of the last few years, especially, right? But like,
Hmm.
overall, it's generally okay. It's not like Argentina where it's rip roaring 97%, whatever it is, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
So I mean, it's not like genuine pain over here. Like there are people struggling more so now, but it's not nothing crazy. I feel like society overall needs to go through like a huge pain point in order to make that transition.
Yeah.
I know when people say, "Oh, it's gonna be like a hard landing to Bitcoin or like a soft landing to Bitcoin," I think you kind of have to have a hard landing. Like have a really bad time. Maybe like a huge, financial collapse everywhere. That's how you get people to Bitcoin. Then I think they finally understand because there are so many different examples I could point to you in the last few years. Like, okay, this is why Bitcoin. This makes sense.
Is that so? We normally have three last questions, and kind of in that same vein, like how do you see hyper Bitcoinization playing out, like a Bitcoin standard happening?
Oh man, I don't know. I go back and forth on this so much. I kind of feel like the next bull run can be like part of that going in that because I
Oh,
like
really? Oh, really? Oh, we're about to enter Bitcoin standard territory. That's what you're thinking?
Bull
maybe
juice. Let's get some bull
Bullish,
juice.
bullish take.
is okay. So you know the theory of like it takes 3 touches to really get it right, Bitcoin. So like maybe the first touch you hear about it, you're like, okay, whatever, that's dumb. Second time you hear about it, you're like, it's interesting, whatever, but I'm not gonna pay attention to it. Third time, you're like, all right, I'm gonna look into it. It looks a little interesting. Maybe I'll buy some. I guess that's like a general. I mean, have you guys heard that maybe 3 touch theory with
Yeah,
people?
for sure. For sure.
It
Yeah,
makes
I believe
sense.
in
It
that.
makes sense.
It's
Yeah,
like, when was the first time you ignored Bitcoin, right? That
Yeah,
meme.
yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of think that's with society too, in a way. So like the first touch was in 2017, right? Like nobody knew about Bitcoin until 2017.
That's interesting.
And then the second time was recently in the last, 21, 22, whatever.
Yeah, because everyone knows about it now, right?
Right. Everybody knows about it now. And so like, okay, here comes the third time, 2024, 25.
Oh.
People are gonna be like, okay, this is not going away. I probably have to get some now. So I kind of think like people see, I mean, at that point it's gonna be like 8 years, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
or
I mean,
12. Yeah.
yeah, well, like 2017 to 15, like
Right. Yeah.
or 25, right? Sorry, it's 2017 to 2025. So that's 8 years.
Two halving
So,
cycle.
so I mean, within 8 years, it's like not dead, and it's like it's $300,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think people are gonna be fine. Like, all right, you know what? It's not gonna die. I think I'm gonna buy some. And I think it kind of goes from there. And I don't know if we see any more like 80% downturns after that.
Oof, I heard this before last cycle.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But eventually, what he's saying is like you would imagine eventually there would be no more, but maybe there won't. Maybe there will always be. I don't know. But I like this theory though. I've never heard this theory about the three touches for society, and it's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a new one I made up, but I think it makes sense because like it's three main touches and it's been 8 years. So it's like, okay, we get it now. It's here to stay.
Yeah, because it's true. In 2017, when I was like first studying Bitcoin, which I didn't buy until 2019, but I was studying for 2 years before I bought, I would talk to people about it. And some people that I would talk to had never even heard of Bitcoin before, right? But by 2021, there was no one that I was talking to that had never heard of Bitcoin. Everyone has heard of it now. Now the issue is like they don't know a thing about it still. They've just heard of it and they all made up it's like the internet, right? Like the early internet, people hadn't heard about it. Then everyone's hearing about it, and then still like that one commercial where they're just like, what's the internet? What's that A thing with the circle around it? Can you explain the internet to us? And they felt okay to not know about it. And then now if you don't know about the internet, it's like what's going on? Like, why don't you know about this? And I think maybe that's where it could be heading for 2020. That could be really interesting if that's where it heads in 2025, where our eyes start to get really opened up about it in society.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add to it. It's also gonna be like, if Bitcoin jumps like to, above 100K or whatever the new level is gonna be, it's always hard to like predict that stuff, obviously. But like think about El Salvador, right? They're all of a sudden gonna be like this shining light example.
Yeah.
But also more and more people who did get in 2017 or one of the previous cycles or whatever. There's gonna be more and more people of those. So also those examples. I mean, you mentioned just now, Marty, like, okay, people really have to see like hyperinflation or, like something bad happening to the dollar. But the flip side is like, if these other people who you knew were in Bitcoin and they're doing really well, right? All of a sudden they're like living the life you were hoping to live. I mean, that's also going to have an impact on people.
Yeah, it has to. And I think just the 100K barrier is kind of big too. Just once you get past that, I think is good. So I mean, that's like that'll be part of the next bull run in the third touch, right? So I don't know.
$1 trillion market cap. Yeah.
Yeah, but like also like just understanding finance and where we're at, just like because we have to just keep exponentially printing, just to keep up with everything. So like I know some people are like, this is gonna be a long play. It's gonna take a while till we get to like hyper Bitcoinization because fiat's gonna be around for a while.
Yeah.
I know some people say that, but I know there's some people like me that says, oh, it's gonna end here pretty soon, but you kind of have to like keep printing the way we're at, and especially with interest expense, where interest rates at. The interest expense for the US is crazy now, and you have to print all this money. So it's just like, how does this
what's wild to me is like you mentioned the financial crisis back in 2008. I know there's this stat where like they printed something like 800 billion, like 0.8 trillion to build them out. And now fast forward 2023, you know, like they printed, what was it, like 6 or 7 trillion back in COVID 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is like a 10x, right? So if we do that again, then the next bailout is going to be like $80 trillion that they're going to print. Like at some point, you know, and like you said, like the inflation is like 20%, 30%, or whatever the number was, you know, like the official number was like 8.5 or 10, I don't know, but everybody feels it in their pocket like it's 20 or 25% over the last 3 years. But Bitcoin is just like this in your face number showing you how bad it really is,
Yeah, and
especially over time.
it's interesting, going back to those three touches, like, 2021, I think was when people first got the touch of, whoa, we're printing a lot of money, and maybe there is no end to this printing of money. You're right, because in 2008, I think we fell for, oh, we can print it, and then we'll get out of the debt, we'll pay it off, all this stuff. And I think in 2021, people realized for the first time, like, oh, we're not getting out of this, And so maybe it's not the three touches with Bitcoin, but maybe it's going to be the three touches with the actual problem, which when people realize again, whenever that happens, whenever things break and money has to get printed again, whether it's 10 trillion or 30 trillion or 80 trillion, whatever it is, when that happens again, then I think people are going to really open up their eyes. And but I think it's part of it is like these narratives that people say, right? There's some people that say, oh, the debt doesn't matter, right? America can't default on its debt, all this stuff. Like, they're playing games like, yeah, the United States can't explicitly do a hard fault, the default on its debt, but we can implicitly do a soft default on our debt. And we have plenty of times, one being, going off the gold standard was one of those times. So, it's just trying to get the narrative correct and getting truth in whatever the narrative is. And I think that's what we're all trying to do when we're trying to spread the message of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like we'll have another recession here probably shortly. So I think people see the pain, and everybody like the stock market's down, then you see Bitcoin shooting up. Everybody's gonna be like, "What the hell's going on? What is this?"
Yeah,
the ultimate
What do
sport.
you what do you make of like I think this has been like the last 2012 to 24 months where we had this war in Ukraine. The US sanctions Russia by taking them off of the SWIFT or banning them from the SWIFT system or however that worked. And then all of a sudden we get like all this cascading news over the next couple of months where like the BRICS countries are looking into creating their own currency. China is making energy deals like not in the US dollar anymore. Even like Saudi Arabia, the United States long forever partner in the petrodollar system is openly flirting with Putin and with Russia, and now like buying and selling gas not in the US dollars anymore, but in rubles and in yuan. I mean, to me, this is like the biggest shift ever. And we're literally seeing it like almost in the news like weekly or monthly now. I mean, that to me has been a big shift in the last year or so. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's like, I think that's where we get a lot of our power, right? From just the oil trades and what it's exchanged in. So everybody's basically leaving, kind of taking their ball and going home. And I don't think those effects are going to be like immediate, but yeah, I just think it's a gradual, decline of where we're at, and dollar's not really going to go back to where it was as that world reserve status. And I mean, if you look at the history of currencies, really, right? Like it takes maybe 80 to 100 years for a currency to become the world reserve currency, becomes a dominant currency, and then it falls off. So it has a status for that time period, then something else takes its place. So the US is from Bretton Woods in like 1945, whatever, to today is like 80 years or so. And we're probably due. So this is probably the beginning signs of a new power coming to be. Hopefully I mean, it has to be Bitcoin. It can't be anything. I know there's, the brick stuff that they're making their own currency out of it, but I mean, how much can you trust all that Chinese and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, Bitcoin will just take its place. It'll just like it'll force its way in. Doesn't matter what these governments want. It'll just come in and really just be the dominant currency. Really, I think.
Okay, we got 2 more questions for you before we gotta go. This second to last question would be, what did you read or listen to throughout all those years that finally made you swallow the orange pill? Like, what finally made it click for you?
Dude, it was like it was a Palm podcast with Murad. It was like, do you remember Murad?
No, I don't.
I don't remember him.
Really?
You're too OG for us, man.
Yeah, for real.
What's his last name?
He was around. He's around now. Like he got wrecked in 2020.
Bitcoining or leverage?
He had like a leverage trading firm for Bitcoin, and he got wrecked when like the March happened of 20. So he just got, and then he just nuked his Twitter. Then he came back last year, and like he was a Bitcoin guy, and now he's like
Oh,
shit coins and stuff. So I'm like, oh, Murad, come on, dude.
he's a grifter.
Yeah, but like he had a really good just lay down of how he saw it, what it means, and what the future will kind of like the game theory aspect of it
Yeah.
with Omp. I recommend it if anybody wants to go back and listen to it. I remember it's like October 31st, Halloween of 2018. If you want to go back and listen to it, I thought it was pretty good. That was a good one. And then I think kind of really screwing in that last screw for me, just kind of totally getting it was Jeff Booth's book. Because in a deflationary world like this where technology is taking over, you simply can't have the US dollar or like any fiat currency in that kind of world. You need a deflationary currency that works in parallel with that.
His book it highlights stuff that I didn't even know was an issue,
Yeah, it was just the last little piece, man, that was like kind of missing where I'm like, yeah, I like Bitcoin a lot, but is it gonna just like rule over everything else? But it just made total sense after that. And so that was really the last piece of the puzzle, and understanding that. So yeah, and other than that, just spend like thousands of hours looking at podcasts and books.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. But I recommend, that podcast and book if you guys have time to take a look and listen.
I love it. Yeah, I remember when Anders used to always show Jeff Booth's book on like every podcast on Toxic Happy Hour.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Jeff Booth finally came on and he was like, my favorite book,
There's no way you read it, dude. You can't read.
Yeah. It wasn't in Danish.
So hey, I try to read everything on Audible as well. It's like podcast form is for me the best form to consume information.
Okay, last question, Marty Zhao. We're saying that Bitcoin's going to win. We're talking about the Bitcoin standard, hyper Bitcoinization, how you learn all this stuff. But let's be rational. What if we're wrong? And if we are wrong, what do you see as the biggest threat to Bitcoin?
Yeah, this one's tough, man.
Marty's crickets.
Yeah, Marty's crickets. I think about this all the time.
Yeah.
The only thing I kind of think about is like, because we live in clown world as it is right now, it's just like if everybody starts using, like there's some weird narrative going on about Bitcoin to push it to whatever, people want to go to, let's have like increase the cap and let's increase it every year or whatever. And stuff like that. And then you have the vast majority of people just moving chains and, people like us will stay on the original chain, but, maybe that just drags it out longer than expected. I mean, I think it all goes back to Bitcoin in the long run. But I mean, there's always clownish stuff that goes on. So I wouldn't put it past society to really just do stupid stuff and, buy Pepe coins and whatnot and just prolong this clown world we're in. But I don't know, man. I don't think governments can really do too much. I don't know, man. I think we're safe. I put
think
in the I think
it's
we're good, dude.
it's a good point that you bring up, right? Like if you think about what happened over the COVID time, right? There were emergencies were declared, and in those emergencies that were declared, a lot of freedoms and rights were taken away for the greater good, right? So what happens if, we get into a time of emergency, it could be 100 years down the road, and for some reason the world thinks that we're in some emergency or some currency crisis, and they go, we have to print more, we have to issue more Bitcoin, right?
Right.
And then the consensus changes, and then the majority of people actually only accept the new hard fork, which allows you to have more Bitcoin. But I think what would happen is there would be a small faction of people that still stay on the on the original time chain, that would continue to use Bitcoin. And as they continue to print more and more and more Bitcoin, because once you start printing more, then there's no cap, and you're incentivized to just print more. It turns into proof of stake, basically, where you'll be incentivized to print more and more, and then they'll print themselves into inflation, and then they'll want to come back to, and that could take another 100 years for that to happen, but it could happen, and then it would have to come back to the original chain. So as long as there's people who continue to understand the importance of a hard cap, I think it'll be okay. But it's a really interesting thought process right there.
Yeah, I just, hopefully there's a, strong, contingent of people that, feels like that hard cap is important and that stays true to that. And, maybe we have some good times, right? Where there's Bitcoin has been so good for, civilization hasn't had wars forever, and everything has changed, and we're feeling good. And then maybe 100 years down the line, finally something bad happens, and then the narrative is like, okay, let's do something. Then people forget along the way, because it's nobody's alive then to for the birth of Bitcoin. So people's thoughts have changed. Nobody has those strong beliefs anymore, and everybody kind of does something new or different. So I don't know, man. Yeah, it's like interesting thought process.
It's almost like we have to, I feel like we don't even say it enough. Like, even for the people that come after us hundreds of years down, like, we need to make a meme that's just burned into the brains, and it's like speaking from the ground. That's like 21 million, no more. No, like, never more than 21
There
million.
are no bailouts, that's the whole thing. It's
Yeah.
like we're allowing these people to like fuck up.
Yep.
And then they say it's so bad, and now we have to make it worse and print money so we can keep going. Like, Bitcoin is not gonna allow you to bail anybody out. You fucked up. There's no way to fix that in the end. No, it's like it's gonna cost you, and people are gonna reject you because you can't fix it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, what they're doing now is like, no, like, yeah, we fucked up a little bit, but it's not really a fuck up. We can still fix it by printing money. And then people are like, okay, and we can't get rid of them because they're like, yeah, we're fixing it. We're printing more money and we're building them up.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be possible in Bitcoin. It's just gonna, like, these people are gonna go because they can't fix it. And that means next time, things that are broken are gonna go broke and bust. And that's good. That's healthy, so, and people are gonna figure that out.
Yeah, I just worry because humans are always going to humans. So, I mean, there's cycles for a reason, right? There's because I believe in the cycle theory. It makes sense to me how it just you see the same stuff get played out over and over again. I mean, there's like in that, I guess, world, there's still Bitcoin, right? But everybody's moving over to that different thing. I don't know. It probably maybe last a little bit, then go away. So I think it doesn't actually destroy Bitcoin. Maybe kind of destroy civilization a little bit for a period of time, but Bitcoin still is here though. Doesn't really go away. So maybe everybody flocks to something else and goes back to Bitcoin at some point. So, but I mean, that doesn't really break Bitcoin. So,
yeah. Or they just like completely paper it over again and create like this massive fiat structure on top of Bitcoin, and people are just too stupid to realize
Yeah.
And you know, like people are just too easily led to the slaughterhouse. They're like, yeah, but I need somebody that I can trust because you know I can't hold my own Bitcoin. That to me is like the biggest threat that people are just not. They just don't see it. Like, yeah, hold my money because I can't hold my 24 words. So please hold my Bitcoin and just like, you know, create a bunch of paper Bitcoin and dilute my purchasing power again, please, because I need a bank.
Yeah. All right. Well, Marty, Zal, Marcus, this has been awesome. I think this is a good place to cut it off. Marcus, any final words?
Yeah, to me, like the final words are always, Marty. You know, like it's great to meet you. I'm happy. Like I consider you a friend. You know, like we've been hanging out on Twitter for so long, and it's been a lot of fun talking to you and hearing that like this crazy shit poster is just another like genius, just like Greg. So I look forward to meeting you, man. I really can't wait for the halving party. I'm excited that you're gonna come. And I really look forward to that. I mean, you guys been to the conference. I'm sure that's a lot of fun too. But for me, the having party, really look forward to it. So thanks for coming on, man. And let's do it again.
Yeah, man. Likewise, I consider both of you guys friends. You know, we would have met if we wasn't for Bitcoin Twitter. So
Yeah.
it's good. And Sean had a good time last year. Hopefully, we can repeat the same mistakes next year in El Salvador.
You don't even remember my favorite night, which it makes me a little sad.
I remember a little bit.
Yeah, you do. You don't remember the best part.
You sound like boyfriend and girlfriend right now.
And then Marcus, we'll definitely hang out in El Salvador when I finally meet you.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, Marty's out. Thanks again, man. It's always fun hanging out with you, talking with you. I wish we could hang out longer and hang out and do more, but I'm sure we'll get to meet up soon. If you know, I'm going to Miami, but it looks like you guys aren't going, so maybe Pacific Bitcoin or Bitblock Boom or wherever, or having party if that's what's next. So Marty's, I'll give people a handoff where they can find you if they want to find you. Are you working on anything right now that you want to let people know about?
No, not working on anything. I might dabble more memes though coming up, just make a little bit more memes. But you can find me on Twitter. Mm-hmm. It's Marty's_owl. Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay, thanks, man. Hey, always a pleasure. And for everybody else that's tuning in, remember we go live every Thursday, the Meme Factory podcast, 7:30 p.m. live Eastern time, and that's where we get a little wild. This is a little bit more in depth. So remember, what you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, don't just let it stay here. Please share, like, subscribe, let people know about the Bitcoiner's Guide. And as for Bitcoiner's Guide, episode 52 from Marty's Owl, Mr. Plan Marcus, and Big Sean Harris, we're over now. Peace.